tell you what.
All right,
Lucas.
Oh, look at that. We're on the same page.
Kind of. You want to know what's really depressing me in my background right now?
The red light?
Oh, no,
what?
that's fine. This really empty paper roll behind me. I hate ordering new paper.
Does Uline get to you the next day?
I don't order through Uline.
Oh, okay.
Quite yet.
Uline's main shipping hub in the entire country is like an hour and a half drive from me. It's like south of or north of Houston. So anytime I order, there's times where I've ordered at like 8 a.m. and it's at my door when I get home from work.
That's super convenient. I mean, I just have to wait the 2 days for Amazon usually, but
it's a better buy though.
Dude, episode 104 now? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so. We're having on one of the people in the retic industry that's just a shining light, a great example of what we should be doing with our animals, how we can educate with our animals. I'm just excited for this one. We've been on his show before, and it's like you were saying before we started recording, long overdue that we had this episode.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Gary Tarplee on with Constricted and Addicted. For those of you that don't know who Gary is, Gary, like Nathan said, is a great example of the retic community. He is someone who has animals from some of the best people in the country, some of my best friends. What the thing I love the most about him is how much he represents these animals in a good light, but he is not a breeder and he doesn't want to breed. And I want to talk a little bit more behind that logic, because I think that it's very easy for those of us who keep reptiles to want to breed the animals that we love. And Gary is like, no, like I'm like, that's not my thing. And he's a metalhead and he's a rocker. I mean, he literally jams on the guitar. I love those videos.
Those are some of my favorites,
dude. They're phenomenal. And I think even more importantly than all of that, is that he does a lot of volunteer work with USARK. And Nathan's wearing a USARK shirt. Gary's wearing one. I'm not. I didn't get the memo. I probably should have, though. That could have thought ahead with that one. That's pretty dumb on my part, but I'm still wearing what I wore to work. So yeah, I'm excited to just have a good, lengthy sit down talk with this guy. Yeah, you actually, yeah, I was going to say you got anything, but shout out to our Patreon.
Yeah, I mean, our Patreon's going strong. Great community over there of just like-minded people who are really curious about reptiles in general. Retics definitely being the focus, but if you sit in our Discord long enough, you'll see that we talk about far more than just that. And in fact, the retics kind of get put on the back burner every once in a while.
I sent a picture. My new import Biak took its first meal right off the tongs, easy peasy. And then obviously I got some cool stuff. I had that beautiful clutch that was just laid. That
yeah,
I'm really
every
looking
once in a
forward
while, if you need a reason to join the Patreon, if you don't already have one, Lucas likes to do these fun little guessing games where you can guess the average weight of his clutch and, you know, get some pretty crazy deals on his animals. So
yeah, I think the last 3 clutches, I said if anybody guesses the average weight, they'd get a free snake. This one, I said something like 75% off. Some people were close, and so everybody on the Discord, if they want an animal from the Solaire Wildcaught Kalatoa pairing, they'll get 25% off. Those are kind of just random perks that we'll throw out on there. And obviously, any animals made available always go to the people on the Discord and Patreon first. So other benefits outside of our awesome community. Shout out to you guys. But yeah, Nathan, you ready to bring Gary on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Whether you've poured your heart and soul into your reptile business or you've just begun your business journey, AE Foundry has you covered with next level expertise in graphic design, motion graphics, videography, photography, and so much more. If you've been dying for a new logo for your reptile business, motion graphics for your current logo, a new website, or need assistance making your video podcast come to life, then listen carefully. AE Foundry's mission places storytelling at its core. AE Foundry believes that a distinctive story and background are the driving forces that set your brand apart. In today's market, consumers seek more than just products. They crave a connection built on trust with the brands they cherish. AE Foundry is committed to empowering small businesses and fostering authenticity that resonates with their consumers. Reach out to them and let them help you craft a visual narrative that helps establish a genuine and lasting connection with your audience. To contact AE Foundry, email them at aromero@aefoundry.com or on Instagram at AE Foundry. When it comes to housing your retics, trust me, you're going to want an enclosure that will be just as strong and durable as your reticulated python. The Heartland Reptile enclosure is next level tough and will outlive you and your retic by several generations. Heartland Reptile enclosures are designed and manufactured out of powder-coated aluminum to provide the highest quality and longevity available in the reptile enclosure. What makes them even better is they are lighter than your PVC and plastic enclosures out there and are extremely tough. Stop playing around with plastic enclosures for your large constrictors and step up your enclosure game with the Heartland Reptile enclosure. To inquire about one of these enclosures, speak to Jordan himself at Heartland Reptiles on Instagram, Facebook, and on TikTok. Here on TRL, we preach about the importance of using hooks, feeding tongs, and other tools with your reticulated python all the time. Animal Equipment by Stoney not only has all the tools you need for any snake you keep, but they have the absolute best hooks on the market. What sets Animal Equipment by Stoney's hooks apart from the other guys is their polycarbonate hook ends that provide a warm feel that won't disturb or bother your retic, ensuring a positive interaction from the get-go. Since 2008, AE Stoney has been supplying zoos, herpetologists, and other animal professionals with their tools. It's time for you to step your hook game up and buy an AE Stoney hook. To learn more and purchase one of their amazing products, visit aestoney.com. Gary.
Good evening, Gary. How are we doing?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Nathan, you sound a little Texas right there. How we're doing? That was good.
It's that new country Bill Murray album that I've been listening to.
Dude, it's good, isn't it?
It's really good.
It's a good album.
Later next month, so very excited about that, but not the band I want to talk about. Just with who we have on today, I'm really excited to know, Gary, did you watch the opening ceremonies? Did you watch Gojira?
Oh my God. So I didn't get to see it live, but I YouTubed it, and I mean, I got goosebumps watching it. I really did. Just the amazing show that, first of all, that the Olympics would allow a death metal band like Gojira to perform at the Olympics. And it just, to me, it kind of shows how diverse the metal community can be. You know, and a lot of people will still see us as, you know, like the misfits and the castaways and all that stuff. But here's
the Satan lovers.
The Satan lovers, right? But here's the Olympics, right? Here is a worldwide, like, athletic organization opening up with one of the world's premier. I mean, Gojira was like one of the pioneers when they came out. Gojira, those bands, the off-time death metal bands, Gojira is like the godfather of that music. So to have them open up and to see what they were able to do in that performance on that, like that balcony building, man. I mean,
they're all playing outside of the windows.
They sounded phenomenal too.
Outrageous. I don't think, even if you don't like metal, you had to have liked what they did. It was just amazing and just aesthetically pleasing all the way around. It was beautiful.
I think that was my favorite part. It was seeing everyone outside of the metal community's reaction to Gojira playing. Nothing but positive reactions. I have not heard one person go, why did they have a metal band play? That was so awful. Like, even my dad was like, yeah, that was incredible. So yeah, it was really cool to see. But we're not here to talk about Gojira. We're here to talk about Constricted and Addicted. So Lucas, you want to start us off?
Yeah, Gary, I think that, before we go into the USARK aspects, all these different things, I think it's important that our listeners get an idea of who you are, and that journey of reptiles. And I'm sure that we can probably spend hours talking about that, because it seems like you've been just loving on reptiles for a while, but I guess take us through just kind of a synopsis of what led you to getting into like reticulated pythons and the species that you've kept and that you currently keep.
All right. Yeah. So I'll keep it really short because it could be a very lengthy story, but my older sister had a 14-foot-ish or so reticulated python. This was back in the early 80s. It was in a big aquarium, like 150 gallon aquarium, no security covering on it. It was just wide open. And when you would walk by this thing, she never handled it either. So, I mean, a lot of things in the 80s, people didn't have the same kind of resources about reticulated pythons as we do today. It scared the crap out of me. Every time you'd walk by that thing, it would slam the glass every time. But it also intrigued me at the same time. I don't know why it did, but so I ended up buying a reticulated python. I don't know, I might have been 14 or 15 years old. I really don't remember because back then I had no clue of what husbandry was. I had no clue of the correct way to keep a reptile. We threw them in an aquarium. We threw some substrate in there. We threw live animals in there, and we thought we were doing a good job. There was people out there, I'm sure, that had better ideas than what I had in keeping reptiles. I just never outreached, and it really wasn't until it was even social media, right? I mean, I took about a 7-year break from owning reptiles. And then when I, got back into it, I was reliant on YouTube. YouTube had a lot more information about reptiles and reptile keeping than, word of mouth, right? So my daughter, I only have one daughter, my kid grew up with reptiles. She grew up with big reptiles. And, so fast forward a little bit, she has a kid and my granddaughters are coming over. And then one day my granddaughter asked me, she goes, "Hey, Grandpa," she goes, "I want to learn about the big snakes that my mom grew up with." And I was like, this is it, right? So we started small. We started with ball pythons and she really got into it. And, as a child, she kind of lost interest just as quick as she gained interest. But it really started a fire for me. I started keeping a lot of ball pythons. I saw everybody else doing it, right? Nobody had just one. Everybody had 20, 30. I thought it was normal to do this. So I had probably about 20 or so ball pythons. And for me, what happened with the ball pythons is that correct husbandry, and I've been researching, their temps, their humidity, size of enclosure, what they like, what they don't like. And I just found it very difficult sometimes to feed these animals. And I would get really, really stressed out, like to the point where I couldn't sleep because I'm going on 2 weeks before since this last ball python is eaten. And I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make it eat? And so I heard somebody say, if you own ball pythons, you should own a boa constrictor because, for the garbage, because they'll eat what your ball pythons don't. So I did. And I just progressively got into the larger constrictors again. So I told myself I would never own a mainland reticulated python just because of the sheer size. That's where I was at that moment. And I started researching the locality reticulated pythons. I heard the term super dwarf. I heard that they were a smaller retic with the same retic personality. And it got me super curious. I wanted to learn about them. So I did. I did a lot of YouTube searching. I saw a lot of Reach Out Reptile videos. And I got to the point where I said, you know what, I can handle that. If I got a 12-foot reticulated python, I think I could be good with that. And so I did. I set aside some money and I called Reach Out Reptiles. And it was unfortunately at a time when Joe was getting ready to deploy for Germany.
Yeah.
So the communication wasn't there. And I've talked to Joe about this prior, and it was just the wrong time, But so I called and I would talk to Joe, and he'd send me some price lists, and I'd call back. There'd be no communication at email, very little communication. And a friend of mine had bought a locality Kalatoa from Chris McVicker, and she had said, "Hey, you know what? Give this guy a call. he will take care of you. And I mean, I called Chris, the phone rang twice. He picks it up and he sent me over a list immediately. Hey, this is what I have. And I didn't know anything about morphs. I didn't know anything about hets. I didn't know nothing about nothing. I'm a keeper, right? I'm not a breeder. So I ended up dropping $4,000 on my first
Dude, that's
super
the way
dwarf,
to do it.
quote unquote super dwarf, that when I got her, she hated my guts, man. I thought she wanted to kill me. And I'm a big wuss when it comes to getting bit by reptiles.
Dude,
you guys.
same. We talk about that all the time, man. We talk about it all the time.
I don't take it well, you know, and I don't have like a whole bunch of babies biting me. So, you know, I don't like it. The striking gets my attention. It startles me. I mean, even today it still does the same, maybe not as much as back then when I got Cora, but I never unboxed a reticulated python. I had no idea what to expect when I opened that bag up, and what came out was about a 6-foot animal that was just shooting. And I thought, oh my God, it's going to get under the refrigerator. It's going to get under the oven. And the first thing that came to mind, right? I was watching all these videos, and I don't know whose video it was, but they talked about running the snake through your hands. Just let the snake run through your hands. And that was the first thing. I grabbed it, pulled it back in, and just started having her run through my hands. And she finally, she coiled on my wrist. So I'm thinking, okay, we've got some progress here. And I've got a bin. So my next thought is how do I get her into the bin? And if I get her into the bin, how do I get her out of the bin? So I managed to get her in. She was hissing, striking, everything. So I left her alone for a couple of days. My friend calls me up and says, you're going to end up selling that animal. I said, no way. I'm determined. I'm going to walk through this. And I started watching videos. So I have a big Carhartt jacket, big gloves. And I said, okay, it's me and you, and you're going to like me. I don't care what it takes, right? So for probably 3 weeks, 15 minutes every day, I handled that animal. I'd get her out. She'd try to bite me. She did bite me. She bit my wife. She'd strike at air. I wouldn't let her anywhere near my face. But the more I did it, the more she'd go through my hands. And then finally she was wrapping around me and she wasn't trying to get away. And probably about 2 weeks later, I lost the jacket. I handled her with gloves. But after about 3 weeks, I finally let the gloves down. And that animal is now my best friend. I've had her for 3+ almost 4 years. And I look back at the interaction, my first interaction with her, and I'm surprised that I still have her because she scared the living crap out of me. She really did. But the reward of walking through that and just hoping, because there was no faith on the other side of it. It was like, I hope this animal calms down. Yep. But then after I kept doing it, I started to see that she was calming down. And the more I did it, and the more trust that I gave her, the more trust that she started to give me. And it's been my thing with retics ever since. I mean, I love the retics. If I've got real quick, I want to tell how I got into mainland retics because, you know, that was a big no-no for me. I figured there's no way in the world.
Can I guess? Was that at the Arlington NARBC? Was that your first one with Chris?
No. So that was, it was at Reptilian Nation in Roseville, California.
Okay.
And if you ever go to a reptile show with my wife, what she'll do is she's a talker, man. She will ask you questions. And some of these questions could be uncomfortable. And I think what she did was they had this mainland. She was about probably 7 feet long, 6.5, 7 feet long. When I was holding her, she was probably like 2.5 years old. And my wife was asking, what do you do with these animals when you go from show to show? And the guy says, well, I put it in a 3-foot bin and we just, keep her there. And my wife freaked out. My wife came to me and she says, you're taking this animal home. And I said, you don't understand. This is, and like, back then I was one of those guys who said 20 feet, right? I know that's not true. A 20-foot retic is like a 7-foot man. But, I did. I said, this animal's going to get 20 feet long. She goes, I don't care. You will take better care of it than he will. You're taking it home. So that is how I didn't have nothing for her but a big bin. So I mean, it'll put you into action real quick. I brought her home, had her in a bin. I ended up finding an 8-foot enclosure on Craigslist. I told myself I'd never have a retic or a snake or a reptile in my living room. There goes my first, because all of my rooms are already full with other snakes. So now I've got a reticulated python in my living room. But I mean, where we live in a town that's got 1,200 people. So we never have company up here. I mean, very rarely do we have company up here. And that was my big thing is that I just didn't want people to come into the house and go, oh my God, you keep reptiles.
Yeah, or
we don't
shit
have
themselves.
anybody to come up to the house to see the reptiles. So, but anyways, that is how I got into mainland reticulated pythons. I fell in love with her immediately. Her personality is just so much different. She's got so much more confidence, and she's slower. She's more methodical, I guess I could say. I mean, every retic that I have is interactive and a wonderful animal, but there's just something different about the mainlands versus the localities. And I really, really love, I mean, I've got Scarface here. You guys know about Scarface. Now that was NARBC. Yes, that one. Yeah, you were done. Now I remember what you were done. That was Scarface. I got Scarface from Chris.
Chris looked at me and he's like, hey, you want to take this snake home? And I was right next to you and your wife was holding it. And I was like, they look like they want it more than me.
Well, again, so here's an animal that, it's funny because you can hold an animal at an expo or even over at somebody's house, and it's great. It's got no, sign of fear, but you put it on an airplane, you jostle it around, it goes for a 3,000-mile trip, and all of a sudden its attitude is going to be a little bit different when you pull it out of the box. And that's exactly what I went through with Scarface. Very defensive, never struck or bit or even hissed at me, but just very reserved. I mean, very cautious, very like most retics are very curious, right? He would just lay on my wrist and stay there, like keep his eyes on me, very short tongue flicks. And I really had to think outside the box with him because of the fact that he was born with his umbilical cord wrapped around his head. So his, in my opinion, now Chris didn't tell me this, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I think his eyesight has got some impingement to it because of his head deformity. So he doesn't see as well as my other retics do. So I really had to think outside the box with him in order to get his confidence, to gain his trust, to work with him. And it took me a little bit, but again, here's an animal that was scared to death of me, and I've had him for a little over 2 years now, one of my best friends. Absolutely. He comes to the glass. He lays his head right on the glass when I come in the room, like, Dad, come get me out right now. I see you. Come get me.
There he is. I was going to ask Nathan to pull up a picture of him. He's just got the cutest, derpy little, kink in his lip.
Yes.
And it's over, I think it's on his right side, our left side. Nathan, if you find a picture with that view, you'll see the little like fold in the lip, but he's just, I remember you holding that snake and it was the size of the palm of our hands when we were holding it together at NARBC. That was when I first met you and your wife, and absolutely your wife can talk. I remember I was talking to her and in the back of my mind, I was like, have I met her before? Because I feel like we're best friends. Because she talking to her what came so easy.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something about mainland behavior. And I've gotten the opportunity to own, a little less than a handful of mainland, and you're absolutely right. There's something more calm, and
they're just more confident animals from everyone I've been around.
Yeah, they're confident, they're mellow, they still move, they're still retics, but they're not like the Superdor stuff that's so quick and runs through your hands and is always moving up. And, the mainland that I had and the one I'm thinking of in my mind, Tina, she was a tiger, het caramel. I could tap her with the hook and sit on the floor and she could come out and just climb right up on me. She was such a cool snake to work with, but yeah. So if you don't mind real quick, Gary, I'm curious. So you've talked about the two mainlands. You talked about the other, your first snake, the Superdor from Chris. Do you mind just sharing a little bit more of the other retics in your collection?
Sure.
Like go through the list of like what you have.
So I have a 50% Slayer, 25% unknown locality super dwarf from Chris. That's the one that you helped me with. Very, very wonderful animal, but all of a sudden, because of her, she needed more food apparently, and so I have her. And then I have a Indo-Het caramel, Indo caramel Het ocelot from Aubrey Pruitt, AB Exotics. I also have the Cora, my 50% Kalatoa Phantom Platinum. Then I have a GC Cow from CNA Exotics. I have a GC Motley from Jim's Constrictors. I have Kaya, the 100% Kayawati from you, Lucas. And here's a perfect example. She's got such a great personality. She just doesn't sit still. I can run her through my hands completely, and she's just like on the go. It's not that she wants to get away, but her curiosity level is like at 500 miles per hour all the time. And she's just a great, I mean, you can sit there with her and you can just run her through your hands and she'll go up and she'll go around your neck and she's a perfect example of a locality behavior animal for me.
And you want to know what's fun is her mom, who's about like 9 feet now, is the same way. And so when you have a 9 foot, 20-pound snake that wants to do the same thing, that's when it starts to get exhausting.
Yeah, exactly. And then I've got a Phantom Tiger that I got as a rescue. I've got a Motley Gold. I got a Golden Child, and she's 25% Kalatoa, 2 years old, and she's almost 10 feet long. So don't let percentages fool you. I mean, yeah. And then I've got a Purple Tiger in the other room. I've got Emma up here. I've got Georgia right here. Emma is a Lavender Albino Sunfire Mainland. Georgia is a 50% Kalatoa. So a little story about her. I got her off Craigslist. I got a receipt with her from a specific breeder that I'm not going to mention because I don't trust the facility. But the receipt did say she was born in 2018 and she's 50% Kalatoa. The question in my mind is was it shipped correctly as that animal? You know, the only thing I have to go on is that she is 6 years old and she's about 10 feet long. So her genes are kind of telling me that she does have the locality, but you know, who knows? I mean, it could be a mainland that's just staying small. I just don't know.
That's a great size for even a 50% though.
Yeah, and I will even say maybe it's not like, you know, if you don't have information, background info, maybe it's not Kalatoa, but still certainly super dwarf, right? But that's a good size though.
To go a little further, the facility that she apparently came from, I don't recall them ever working with super dwarf, only dwarf. So I called them because I have the receipt. I called them because I wanted some information on her. And when I called and talked to the person that answered the phone, they basically said, we don't keep records, and hung up on me.
Nice.
Yeah. So if I'm going to go a little further and say it wasn't an individual breeder, it is a big time breeder in the Los Angeles area. So that'll probably pinpoint where the receipt comes from. But I'm not a breeder, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Yeah. So
this is a good time to remind new breeders and breeders out there that customer service is so important, or else or else you maybe end up on a podcast one day being talked about in a way that's kind of blunt and not nice.
There's something to be said about relationships after the sale. There really is. Like you, Lucas, I mean, I've been connected with you even before I purchased an animal from you. You're just a really wonderful person. You've got a great personality. I got the opportunity to meet you at NARBC. I mean, you're a straight up guy. So buying an animal from you, and we've already had the relationship. So maintaining that relationship with you has been amazing. And I appreciate that. With Chris and with a lot of the people that I have purchased retics from. And to finish off, I've got Scarface down here on the bottom. Scarface is a mainland platinum sunfire pied. And I'm breaking all the rules with pieds. quote unquote, they're aggressively mean and defensive animals.
Dude, he's
No, they're
adorable.
not.
He's my favorite snake in the world.
Yeah, finally found that picture of that.
I love it.
The only reason an animal's going to be defensive is if you're not working with it. If you're not handling the animal, if you're not enjoying it, then obviously it's going to develop some fear just sitting in an enclosure, not getting any sort of interaction. That's just my opinion with it. I also have, well, actually, so the lizards that we have those are all my wife's, and we've been together 17 years next week. We've been married for 17 years. So she had no reptiles prior to us getting together. And now she has a tegu, and the tegu is, we got at the same NARBC that we got Scarface at. So it's 2 years old, unmanageable. It's never bit us, but it doesn't like to be held. After about 5 seconds of being handled, it likes to do the alligator death roll.
Does it go for the toes?
No, it doesn't actually.
Okay.
It's just like he gives us a sign that he just doesn't want to be handled. We let him run around the house. I mean, we let him walk around for a couple hours at a time, and I can take him out from his enclosure and soak him in the tub, and then I can get his enclosure cleaned out, and he's okay with that. But if you want to just like casual, like this is the reason, right? I love seeing people at expos or places, and they throw their tegu up on their shoulder and they walk around, and it's like, that's what I want. I want that tegu. I bought that tegu when it was this big, and it's now this big. It's huge, right? And it's never going on my shoulder. I've just learned that is the way that tegu is, and we're gonna love it the same. It doesn't matter.
Argentine black and white, then?
No, it's actually a
red
ghost ice.
Oh, okay.
A what? Sorry.
Awesome.
It's a ghost ice tegu.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a morph that I'm pretty sure most, if not all, I mean, it's mostly Argentine, right?
Yes. It's an Argentine morph,
Yeah.
is what it is.
Exactly. But beautiful
I think
nonetheless.
there's hope too, because I've heard that they always go through that like teenage phase of where they do kind of dislike you.
You know where the hope is?
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit vivtechproducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit vivtechproducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than Heli Guy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at heliguyserpents.com and start giving your pets the best. Heli Guy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.heliguyserpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
The hope is in Gary just got his first water monitor.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Gonna go there. We're gonna go there. So I've got the tegu. We've got a Euromastix. We got a gecko. 2 bearded dragons. We've got 2 sulcata tortoises that live outside full time, even in the snow. I built a complete like house out there for them that maintains 85 degrees all year long. So
that is sick.
In the wintertime, it's funnier than shit. They go outside, they're inside their house, the snow could be on the ground, and it's their house. It's like a big old wet spot around their house because the house is warm. And you won't see them until March or April. They come back out. They go back in right around end of November. Starts to get cold. And then, so yes, I have been researching water monitors for a couple of years. And I've been fighting myself with it because I've got the retics, and Last thing in the world I want is a large water monitor. And so I kind of talk myself out of it. And then I go to a show and I see somebody with a white throat. And I'm thinking, man, I want that. There's something inside you, right? Or at least inside me, when I get that bug, it's like, okay, do some more research, see what you can find out, see if this is the right thing for you. And then you do some research.
Gary's speaking my language right now, Nathan.
No, this is my language too. I just usually don't pull the trigger.
And you get that one piece of information, right, that sets you back one more time and says, no, it's not the right time, or maybe it's just not for me. And then you go to another show and you see a Savannah water monitor or whatever, right? And you're like, oh, you're doing the research again. So I said, okay, you know what? I want a small monitor. So I took in an Ackie monitor. And I have just had a difficult time bonding with this animal. It's got its schedule, right? But here's another thing. It wasn't a baby when I got it. It's full grown. It's an adult. And I am really trying to work with something that it's been difficult to work with. And I sound like I'm giving up on it, because I probably am. I am giving up. But at the same time, I want a baby, just like a retic, right? If you're going to work with a retic, don't get somebody's 5-year-old retic. Get a baby retic that you can grow up with, that you can learn its behaviorisms and its mannerisms, and it can learn you. I mean, to me, it's just the most healthiest way to raise a reptile. And that's where I said, you know what? Maybe I need to go back to the drawing board. I was up in Washington, and I've been watching a lot of videos and doing a lot of research. And I talked to a guy up there, and I almost bought a green tree monitor. I almost bought a green tree monitor. And I refrained from it because I thought, again, no, I don't have the right caging for it. I mean, I really have to have something in place. If I do this, something's got to be in place. Mm-hmm. And there it went again. That bug hit, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make a post on Facebook, and I want to talk to somebody. I've watched videos. Until I'm blue in the face. I've done all the watching I can do. I want to talk to somebody who knows monitors. And the first thing I got was a message from Jeremy Wilcox, who said, dude, you need to talk to Mike at Mike's Monitors.
Dude, Mike is that guy that when you talk to for the first time, you just feel like you're going to be friends with him forever.
So interestingly enough, I wanted to call out, I follow Mike on Instagram, but I've never talked with him. I don't think we've ever even, associated or interacted on each other's accounts. So I was going to message him. I had my message ready to go on Facebook, and I thought, you know what? He doesn't know me. I don't know if he's going to, this is just my head talking shit, right? I don't know if he's going to respond. He doesn't know who I am. And next thing I know, I look at my message, and Mike sent me a message in my Facebook. He said, dude, if you want to talk monitors, give me a call. Here's my number. So I automatically called him. I didn't even think about it. I just pressed and it said call, and I called, and we were on the phone for like an hour and a half.
Yep.
I mean, and it wasn't like, he did not say, hey, you know what, Gary, I want to sell you a monitor. He gave me all the information that, he told me about him. He told me about how long he's been keeping monitors. He told me what to, if I wanted to do this, these are the requirements. This is what I need. Told me his experience with monitors, basically, how puppy dog tame they can be. He never once said, Gary, I've got monitors, and if you want one, I'll send you a list. That never even came up. It wasn't until after we were done, I think I sent him a text and said, hey, Mike, after our conversation, you're the guy. I don't care if you got a monitor for sale or not. I'll wait, but you're the guy I want to get a monitor from. And it was just one of those things that I didn't care how much it cost. I didn't care. This was the guy. I mean, just talking to him felt right. Yep. So he's giving me homework. I mean, he gave me homework. So I'm over here, you can't see it, but I've got an SCS, Mike's Monitor Socializing Caging System, sitting right over here, acclimating for when my monitor shows up on August 15th.
And what monitor did you decide to get?
So I ended up with an Asian water monitor.
A sulfur, right?
A banded sulfur monitor.
Nice, man. Those are besides the blacks, those are my favorite.
So I think Mike, I don't know if Mike's the only guy working with him, but he might have been one of the first guys to work with him. I don't remember the story that he told me about it, but he's got, his hand is somehow on that banded sulfur monitor. And I mean, it banded sulfur monitor or not, just because of what Mike has shared with me and the just a genuine person that he is. If, like I said, you said it, Lucas, if you just talk to Mike, it's like his aura just grabs you. It grabbed me. And I felt like I'd known the dude for a very, very long time. And it just, again, it's just through conversation, it made it very simple for me to say, this is the guy I'm going to buy a monitor from.
Yeah, I reached out to him a while back because I wanted to learn about dwarf monitors, Varanus and all the different species he keeps and you know, the pygmy monitors, all those different things that he has. And I led with like, hey, Mike, would love some of your time. And I was very forthcoming. I'm like, I'm in the very beginning stage. I'd love a monitor someday. I'm nowhere close though. And he hit me back up. I was like, what do you want to know? And we literally over the course of 2 weeks, almost daily message back and forth about all the different species that he keeps. And then I saw him at a show and got to talk to him for a little bit. And yeah, just a good dude. And honestly, there's, you know, I was going to say not many, but like this is more of a subjective thing, but there really isn't a better person to buy a monitor from in the US, in my opinion, when it comes to some of the dwarf monitor species and then some of even the larger ones. I don't know if he works with tree monitors. I
don't believe so.
I don't think so. So obviously if you're looking for a tree monitor, maybe you don't go to Mike, but everything else, man, the guy is just a wealth of knowledge and one of those people where, you know, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I was reaching out to people about retics and I didn't have one, I wanted information. There's this kind of like, not imposter syndrome, but you almost feel like you're scared who to reach out to because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to be the annoying person or you don't want to hassle or you don't want to be a nuisance.
You know?
Right. And, you know, there are people in the retic industry like Eric Lee, like Chris McVicker, and like Garrett, when I was talking to him, you know, back before he got the big building and now he's running a legit operation. Right. So he's a little less accessible, but Joe is still great. But there's just people, that like you can reach out to and they're not going to make you feel that way. And they're going to give you all the information that you need, whether they make the sale or not. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, that's been my experience. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I don't participate with Facebook groups. I only hear about the collateral damage that takes place. You know, I hear it from people all the time. Man, I posted a question and I got everybody lit me up about it. And it's like, you know, I've learned that the relationships that we build, especially with the breeders that we get our animals from, those are the most important relationships when it comes to something like, for me, if something happens with one of my animals, I can go to Chris immediately. And like Chris, you know, so when I had that situation with Celia, my Slayer take place, Chris was the first person I reached out to. And he said, you know what, you got to call Lucas. I think Lucas has more information about this. So that's when I called you. If the people that, if they don't know, they're going to direct me in the right direction. And it hasn't misleaded me yet. It hasn't gotten me onto that ledge where it's like, screw that. I'm not calling anybody ever again. I don't want to go through that rigmarole. You know, right. Fortunately, I haven't had a whole lot of problems with any of my retics. I mean, like I said, I live in a town that's 1,200 people. I'm probably 2 hours away from a nearest vet. I've never had a problem where it required vet services.
Man, that's awesome.
But knock on wood, right? I mean, I've been fortunate, you know, and maybe that's because I listen to what people tell me to do. I don't take these animals into my own hands and go, well, if 15 other retic owners are doing it that way, I'm going to do it differently. I've learned that if you're keeping your retics, your husbandry is at, 80 degrees or 82 or 84 degrees, whatever that is, and your humidity is at 75%, and your retic is thriving in that environment, well, then it must be working. And if everybody's doing that, then it must be working. The only thing might do differently is I don't decorate my enclosures like everybody else does. And maybe that's because I pull my animals out all the time. And I get super tired of having to pick shit up off the floor and put it back in because they're wrapping it up on the way out. I mean, it's that much of a problem. So
I will say that, and I'm sorry to interject here, but I think that this is a topic that we're talking about a little bit. And Nathan, I would love to hear your thoughts as well. But
seeing as I just keep paper in water holes.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. But I was just gonna say that like enrichment looks different for a lot of people, and you know, a lot of people are going to be listening, right? You know, I love Riley right now. Riley's Reptiles. He's going on his little tangents on Instagram with the Gen Zers right now, and he's having fun with it. But he, you know, about like this idea of like naturalistic and large and all these different things, and this young generation is coming after all of us that are keeping a little bit more simplistic, and I have decent sized cages. I mean, Nathan's seen the size of my cages in my garage. I keep my animals have space, but it's not super decorated or anything, but I think what's worth noting, especially for you, Gary, is that you might not have a huge decorated enclosure with all these things, but I don't see anyone posting nearly as much. You like every other day you are posting a retic outside, and you are giving them enrichment outside of the enclosure. And that's really what's like this idea of enrichment in the enclosure is to provide stimulation for their brain. Instead of just being a sack of potatoes. But if you are taking them outside and allowing them to go on the guardrail or to go on the deck and they're getting the smells of outside and you're doing that regularly, that is enrichment. And that is good
any
for
new
them.
stimulus for a retic is enrichment.
Right.
so don't get me wrong, man. I really love seeing
they're beautiful.
People with enclosures that are just like Abby, curly-haired reptile, the curly-haired keeper. She is probably one of the best when it comes to cage decor and naturalistic, and I love what she does. I only wish that I could do what she does with her animals. I'll bet you anything she can get her animals out without having half the stuff come out. Me, on the other hand, I have freaking cork bark in here, and they're wrapping the cork bark up and bringing it out. They're wrapping their water dishes up and bringing them out. So
that I can relate to that.
I'm getting old, man, and maybe it's just that I don't want to. It's bad enough that my wife comes in here and there's probably 2 pounds of coconut on the floor because their tails are wrapping it out as they're pulling it. So, or as I'm pulling them out. So
I spend as much time sweeping up coconut off my floor than I do of cleaning snake shit.
Yeah, exactly. But see, there's another good deal is that I do take them outside, and what I do is I'll let them go from one end of the property to the other. I'll follow them. Sometimes I'll record them as they're doing that, and it's just me being me, right? But before I know it, they've gone probably 100, 120 feet, you know, and they're just going. Sometimes they're going uphill, and they take their big old dumps out on my property, you know, and it really does lessen up the cleanup in the enclosure. But I mean, I take them out. The smaller ones, I don't really let them on the ground until they get a little bit bigger. I just want to feel a little bit more confident. I know that I let Scarface go on the ground when he was smaller, and I think he wanted to dart. He just wanted to go. So that experience gave me the like, hey, you know, the smaller ones, keep them in the hands, maybe let them go on tree branches and things like that, but not on the ground. The bigger ones, man, they just want to cruise. They just want to explore. And here's another thing with it being so flipping hot outside right now is that I take a temp gun out and I'm always temping the ground because even the grass, with it being like 107 degrees out here, the grass can be 115 degrees. Yep. You know, so it's really important, you know, that you're always checking the temp of what you're putting your animal on because you don't want to burn them. Putting them on something that you're unaware of how hot it is in the first place. Yeah,
I have a rule that basically from the end of May to the beginning of September, I just don't take my retics outside. You know, I've taken some snakes out at like, you know, I'll take them out if I want to get a video of them in the sunlight, but in my hand, but I won't take them out for 20 minutes or so just because it's too hot. I noticed a couple summers back that when I did that with one of my animals, it was my Who was it? Can't remember off the top. One of my sweet animals, but I realized after 5 minutes that animal became defensive and was scurrying away from me, and it had never done that. And then I realized, like, oh, it's 94 degrees outside. Like, wonder if that had something to do with it. I just don't. I personally don't think retics like heat. They don't.
So I have never experienced that with a retic, but I have experienced that with boa constrictors. I have taken boa constrictors outside and let them sit on the grass, and all of a sudden, I'm getting struck at. Now, funny, I had a Nicaraguan, and you can say, oh, well, Nicaraguans are just like that. But there was one of the sweetest Nicaraguans I had, and as soon as I took it outside, it did not like it. I also had an Argentine that did the same thing. It took it outside, it just turned into a different animal. My Burm, I have a Burmese that she did the same thing. She flipped out when I took her outside. So there's some animals I don't take outside because I don't know if it's the UV rays that are messing with their eyes, or what it is, but
I would attribute it to instinct. They're going outside to a big, vast, open place, and all of a sudden they feel exposed. Do you have thoughts on that, Nathan? Just like that switch. Have you ever done that with an animal where you take them outside and there's a switch that happens and they become a different animal? That's why.
Any of my defensive animal, any animal that has ever shown signs of being defensive, like the male that I was breeding from Joe, he was just a skittish animal. So as soon as you brought him outside, he would do two things. He'd either freeze up or he would try to bolt. So after, after you have one of those experiences, okay, outside's probably not the best option for this animal.
Yeah.
And then as far as the boa thing goes, that's interesting to me because I got a pretty nasty boa bite when I was first getting into keeping larger animals, and it was right as I took that animal outside. So I do wonder if maybe they're just a little bit more sensitive to the exposure.
I mean, I like, for example, I got it was last year. I think it maybe, like a year and a half ago, maybe I got that, 13-year-old Solaire, big girl, heavy. I intentionally asked Chris at Mystic Reptiles, like, hey, have you ever taken this snake outside? Because he had it its whole life. He got it when it was a year old from Gary Lawless. And he's like, no. So I'm not taking this now 14-year-old, 14-foot snake outside. I'm not doing it. That's not worth the risk, because if that thing wants to bolt and turn around on me, I'm not dealing. Again, I'm a chicken. I don't like getting bit. The other day in my garage, this happened yesterday when I was pulling the Kalatoa clutch. She's been in crazy food mode. She might be building follicles. I opened up her enclosure, tapped her with her hook. She bit and wrapped the hook so violently that her whole body came out of the enclosure. And then once she let go of the hook, she was stunned and kind of like, okay, she wasn't defensive, but she got behind cages. It literally went from like the adrenaline of skydiving to then feeling like I ran a marathon trying to get her in her holding tub to clean her enclosure. So I'm not taking that snake outside. You're out of your damn mind. I'm not doing it.
I'm pretty fortunate that none of my retics are they're not defensive. I don't worry about being bit by any of them. I'm just really, really fortunate in that matter because of the fact that I think I work with them constantly. I really do. And it's like I tell people, I've had people ask me before, and I say that my retics, they live in love. They don't live in fear. They don't know what fear is. They've never been exposed to a situation where, except for, hang on just a second, my computer is dying here. There we go. Now I got it plugged in. Emma, what happened here?
We're still good on our end.
Okay, good. This girl up here, she goes to a lot of, I get the opportunity to do kids fairs out here. And kids events, and a lot of the kids events that I get to do out here have spawned from the county fairs that I do. It's been a very, very a blessing in my life because it gives me the opportunity to share my passion and my love of reptiles with the community, and also to share people that they're not the mean, ugly, slimy creatures that their parents are telling them they are. And it's the neatest thing in the world when you've got this 7 or 8 year old kid that's up there like, oh my God, and they're touching, and the parents back there shivering in their shoes going, oh my God, how are you doing that? But eventually they make the move and they come over and they touch the animal and they realize it's not going to bite them, and they realize it's not slimy, and all this stuff that they were taught as a kid, kind of goes out the window. But I was at a football field. I was at one of the county fairs, and I had Emma out on the football field, and I had like probably, 15 kids all around her, and they're touching her. And this one kid comes flying through the football field and stepped right on her head, and that is the only time. You should have seen
terrifying.
Most parents that were standing around, it's like the kids' parents were nowhere in sight. I about lost it, but Emma was fine. She took it like a champ. But, it's just one of those things. There's always a Billy, right? There's always Billy. Billy is the kid that doesn't listen to anybody. He's going to do exactly what you asked him not to do. And Billy came running through the football field.
Damn it, Billy.
But that was the only time where something negative happened to one of my animals. And again, it was taken in stride. I handle the animals. I love on the animals. I give the animals full trust. I could get bit for what I do. I've seen videos where people get bit, and I don't know how it happens, but I let my retics crawl all over my face, and I've never had anything like that happen. They're very curious. There's no defense about them. So that's what I say is like, my retics live in love, man. They don't live in fear. They have never had to fear a human being at least in my home, since they've been in my care, never had to fear a human being. So yeah. I'm very fortunate with the fact that I have the personality, the retics with the personalities that they have.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned like they live in love and not in fear, and I think that's a big statement. Do you do anything with your husbandry or your approach that is systematic or predictable in regards to how you might open their enclosure or how you might tap them or take them out? Do you think there's any part of your behavior that is predictable for them that helps them feel secure? I guess I'm trying to get into the mind of like what that looks like, so that when people are listening to our podcast, and we have a lot of people that listen to this that are on the fence, or they want their first retic, but that kind of that typical retic reputation, a food response and aggressiveness, right, starts to come into play. So I guess like what does that look like, living in love and not in fear? Is it something, obviously you have an amazing aura, like you have great energy and you love your animals. And I say that seriously. I have yet to see, even on social media or anything, a mean bone in your body. And so besides when you're shredding a guitar, that's a different story. But
I'm taking a metal photo.
But I'm curious, like, is there anything about like, do you like, is there a repetition? Is there a way that you go in? Is there any method? It's
funny you say that, because there is, and I've talked to other retic keepers like Abby, and she does the same thing I do. And I know there's a lot of other people that do the same thing. Is that I first of all, before I open up any enclosure, I'm always reading the animal. What's the animal doing? Where's it at? And how is it responding to me being next to its enclosure? There's a couple things I look for, and the first thing is that if there's anything defensive about it, and I never see that. So usually, like even with this girl right here, she's right behind me, and if I walk into the room, my office is usually set right over here. I moved it over here to put the enclosures behind me. But as soon as I come in the room, this one here, Georgia, she'll come over to this side of the enclosure, and she'll peek around my monitor, and she'll look at me. And the whole time I'm in here, she has her eyes on me. And it's not because I have food, it's because she knows that I'm in here. Mm-hmm. So then I come to the enclosure, I start talking baby talk, and I'm just being very transparent, right? I start talking to them, and I talk to them. I'll open up the enclosure. And as soon as I open up the enclosure, then I'm reading what is the animal doing when I opened up that enclosure. 9 out of 10 times, her or any of my retics, their tongues are flicking like crazy. They're looking at me, and I'm going to give them about 2 to 3 minutes, and I'm going to talk to them, and I'm going to just like goo goo talk, because I'm, talking about it right now. I couldn't tell you exactly what I say, like, what's my little love doing? Things like that,
I was
And
going to say, please give us an example.
I've
Yeah,
seen
but-
people that will click at them like cats, like
I'd do that.
like coming out. Yeah, like
I do
I
that.
do the clip. Like, I'll say, I love you so much. And then what I do is I'll run my hand under their chin. And when I do that, I can get them right out. I mean, there's a couple of animals I will not do that with. And 9 out of 10 times I'll never post it on social media because of the fact that I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea that you can go to a retic and put it under the chin and get it out. Somebody's going to get bit, I mean, I'm lucky I haven't been bit, but
well, Gary did it, so I can do it.
That's my fear, man. But I read the animals, and I can tell right off the bat, just by their tongue flicks, by how they're coming out towards me. It's in a very curious mode. It's not in a scared or a standoffish mode. It's very curious. And as soon as I see that, then I take it a step further and I go underneath their chin. And that's, I mean, it's become very repetitious. So even Emma, I don't use a hook with her when I get her out. She's just so big that, she could be like half over here and half over. Okay, you see her right here?
yeah.
She wants to come out. She has been sitting back here. I'll just touch her. I'll rub my hand on Emma and she'll turn around, but that's about it. And then I can literally go from her back to her head and give her strokes on her head and pull her out without any problem whatsoever. I've never had this animal have a food response without, I mean, like, I can open up her enclosure. She's never come flying out at me. I can't say that for some of the other animals that I have. That GC cow, sweetheart of an animal, but you open up that enclosure at the wrong time and half her body will come flying out at you. So, and I get worried about my wife because my wife will come in here and she'll look at waters and, if she sees something, if she sees a cocoa husk in the water, she wants to change it. I'm like, do not open up that enclosure without a hook. That one, you do not open up without a hook. So I got to be careful about her when she comes in here. I've been doing it for so long that I know the animals. I read their behaviors. Simplistic as far as humidity, as far as it's what you guys have taught me. I've made some adjustments, Lucas, and it's really under your advice, man, because I was keeping them a little hotter in the higher 80s. And I think you were the one who told me, hey, I keep mine around 82, 84. So it's been the sweet spot, man. My thermostats are all about, I noticed the pushing. I don't have any retics that push anymore. And I think that's because I'm under 84 degrees. I don't think any of my enclosures are set for anything over 84 degrees. And the humidity has been a challenge as of this summer because I have ceiling fans running all over the place in this house just to try to keep it cool. And obviously with the fans running and the heat, the humidity just spikes, man. It just drops. And are you frozen?
No, we're here. Hi.
Okay. I saw Nathan oh my God, I'm frozen. Anyways, I've been having to come in here with spray bottles and just I'll leave a mister inside the enclosure and just let it spray the whole bottle in there just to keep the humidity up. And I'm experiencing terrible sheds. Emma shed this morning, and it was like shed explosion in there. So I put her in a big bin and let her soak, get it all. I got all her shed off, and I mean it just comes off in pieces, and it's been. I try not to let that happen, but it's just kind of unavoidable right now with this heat, and it's just been terrible. But
I'll send you a link to a humidifier that I think is going to solve all those problems. I got 6 fans in my garage that are going at all times, and it gets hot here, and humidity will just plummet at times. And there's a humidifier I'll recommend to you that would I think just kind of be the perfect touch during the summer, and then the rest of the year you can turn it off. But yeah, that advice that I gave you to go down to 83, 84 degrees, even on a gradient style, I do that ambient, but I guess in my mind, what I was thinking at the time when I told you that, because you were having a pushing issue, was that if my animals are on ambient at an average ambient of 82 degrees, and they're not gravid, I've at 82, 83 degrees, when I temp gun their body, it's 84 degrees roughly, or it's even room temperature. So I'm thinking in my head, even in a gradient, if you give them 84, 83, 84 degrees, and 82 during the nighttime maybe, but their body temperature can be that temperature, there's no reason why they won't be able to digest and they won't be able to be healthy and happy. And you'll absolutely minimize the risk of overheating and pushing issues. So I'm glad it's working out.
Well, and the overheating issue, like we were all keeping them way too hot.
Way too hot,
4 or 5 years ago. I don't think I really even considered changing my temps until Daniel Solis came back from the islands and started talking deeply about, the temperatures he was seeing on the islands.
Yeah, 70s and even night times, like high 60s. It's pretty interesting. It
took anecdotal evidence like that for me to be like, okay, yeah, we probably are keeping these a little too hot.
Yeah, even at like 88, in my opinion, like still too hot for a retic. These are they're not they're the Indonesia forest, but it's not Central and South America where it's getting 88 degrees and humid as hell. Like they're still experiencing. I mean, anytime that I look at the temperature on Soleil or Calato or anything, I think the highest I've seen it is 84, 86, but at night you often see it during the rainy season drop down to 68 to 72.
Yeah.
And they don't have thermostats and
I've been keeping them between 82 and 84 degrees. I've had absolutely no issues at all whatsoever. None. And then I get, I get a lot of people that will message me and say, hey man, I feel terrible. My retic is pushing. What do I do? And first thing I ask, what's your temperature set at? That'll be the first question. If it's over, 80, a lot of people use 90 degrees. That's what I was doing. When I first started keeping, I was keeping everything at 90 because that's what Bo is like. Why not retics, right?
Right, exactly.
They're different animals. They're different animals, and they definitely. I mean, I don't even know that if I will bet that I even asked people, and they said 90 degrees. It's the same husbandry as your boa constrictors, and maybe I just got that stuck in my mind. I don't know, but like I said, drop my temperatures down, no issues, and I pass that same advice on to other people when it's asked to me. And first thing, and if they drop the temperatures and they're still having a problem with pushing, I am not somebody who likes to push feeding on, but I have had success in the past. If I have a retic that pushes, and if you just give it a little extra meal, that it will stop pushing. But if it keeps pushing, then the problem is not with the food, it's with something else. Your retic is trying to tell you something. And for me, it was definitely the temperature.
And that's precisely, the issue that I also help you troubleshoot with your snake wrapping you. I was thinking the same thing. I've had snakes do that to me before, and like the wrap and like the head up against your hand, and it happens all of a sudden. But that's the first place my mind goes. The retic is telling you something, and this is a new behavior. And so the first option is let's try a bigger meal, see if it's trying to go through a growth spurt. Our last week episode, we talked about it pretty in depth with ternates in the Maluku region locality retics, but they are just retics that require larger meals, in my opinion, and in my experience, and being told that from Rodney, who's worked with them more than anyone else in the world. Because when I wasn't doing that, they were doing exactly what your retic was doing. And then you start to give them some bigger meals, they go through a growth spurt, and the behavior curbs, it stops.
Right. That's the mentality on my end too, where it's like, oh, you can't pump them full of food because they're going to get obese and blah, blah, blah. If you're not doing it all the time. And I have my retics on a feeding schedule. I mean, I don't know right, wrong, or indifferent. I've shared it with people before, and I've never had anybody say, "Hey, that's not correct." I've talked with people who have said, you know, the way you're doing it is correct, but here's another way that's correct. Retics have faster metabolisms than most reptiles. They're more active,
Right.
therefore they're going to burn off their meals quicker. And sometimes the larger meal doesn't apply to the retic because of the fact that it will burn it off quicker. I, of course, was thinking that. And when you gave me that advice, because I'm thinking there's no way in the world that she's going to take down a jumbo rat. There's just no way. So against your judgment, I said, okay, I'm going to try a large first, because that looked pretty big to me. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then when I finally fed her the jumbo and you said, that's a baby bump, I was like, well, you know what? She's still on every 2 weeks, and she gets a jumbo rat. She's not getting obese. She doesn't seem to be getting any longer. It's just what she needs right now, and it's working.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say this about feeding in general. You know, I will give my retics big meals, but when I do that, it's spaced with a lot of time. And then typically after I do that, you know, an animal that'll eat a 3-pound pig with me, I'll then the next meal just give it 2 large quails, right? Which you won't see a lump, right? And so, you know, I'd like to say, like, you know, I was kind of teasing like, oh, that's a baby meal, but that's because I the reason why I said that is because I have seen lumps in my retics probably 3 times greater than the lump that I saw in yours, but that it's still not good to give a big meal weekly or every 10 days.
No, that amount of work they put into just taking that meal down
it's taxing.
It takes a lot of energy from them.
Yeah, it's taxing. It expands. You got to imagine that muscle fibers in their digestive system, the fibers that line the intestines, you got to imagine they strip and they're having striations and rips. They need to heal. They need time to rebuild that. At least I'm using human anatomy, right? I don't know how snakes work, but I can imagine that when you're putting a big meal, it's adding stress to it, right? So yeah, you definitely don't want that to be the only method of feeding, but what I often see is like in the situation that you're dealing with, and just to recap for people that don't know what we're talking about, Gary had a retic. I think it was a 50% Solaire, 25% unknown, you know, super dwarf, that was going through it, you know, a sweet snake. And then all of a sudden, just one day, the animal changed. And when Gary would take the animal out, it would wrap his hand like kind of really tightly, like a food response type of wrap. Yeah. Wouldn't bite him, but did it ever push its nose up against your hand?
It sure did. It sure did.
So,
it got me a little worried.
Yeah, that's happened to me before, where it's pushed hard enough to where like it didn't bite, but like the teeth punctured my hand because it would push. And you know, and just to give you guys some information of what I'm going through in my mind, I was telling Gary, I think the snake is going through a growth spurt. I think just try to give it a bigger meal and let it ride with some bigger meals. And I think you're going to see some growth in that snake and the behavior will snap. And what was the result?
No, it absolutely stopped it. I also want to interject that I sent you videos of how big she was. It wasn't like you arbitrarily said, just feed a jumbo rat. And we shared pictures. You looked at it and you said, you know what? I really think that she could take a jumbo rat. And that's where, you know, again, I was like, man, I don't know if I could do that. So it took me 2 weeks. The first one was a large. And then after she took the large with absolutely no problem. But even after the large, I saw a difference. You know, the meals I was feeding her before didn't really leave any sort of lump whatsoever. And the behavior change happened almost overnight. So that's what got me kind of concerned. And then it just wasn't changing. I mean, the behaviors were taking place for a good 2 to 3 weeks before I thought, man, I need to reach out to somebody about this. So I was thinking, you know, maybe it'll change, maybe it'll go away. It just didn't. And it actually concerned me more because there was this intimidation factor that almost started happening when I was opening up her enclosure. She was like coming out like if I could read her mind, she was saying, "Come get me, come on, come get me," intimidating me in a sense. And I would say, "Okay, fine, I will come get you." And I'd get her out, and she would wrap me really tight, and she would push her head against my hand or a part of my wrist, which was very, very out of character. And that's, I started listening to what Chris had said, what Lucas had said. And then after the first meal, immediately I saw the change. After the second meal, it's the change stayed. It didn't like change and then go back to what she was doing. She's like right back to the way she was prior to her behavior change. I have noticed though, on her schedule, she's fed every 2 weeks, and I do feed her a jumbo rat now, that at that Thursday, Friday before feeding day, she will start to get that way again. And then I feed her, and then it's changed. She's back in the middle.
Yeah. And it's funny. We were actually talking about this on the Discord a couple of days ago with our Patreon members. But someone was mentioning it's not even the fault of the keeper, because we grow with these animals, and when we have multiple animals, or even just the one, because we see them daily, we don't realize the big jump that they make in growth. And we still have the pack of food in the freezer that we still have for them, the medium or the large rat. And sometimes it takes those type of behaviors to be like, oh damn, the snake's growing. It needs a size up and meal. And fortunately for you, it didn't result in the bite ordeal. Again, us three not liking to be bit.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes it's just hard to identify and see that our snake is growing. And so, I think that's also in the back of my mind why I like to feed the bigger meals every so often, is because I'm keeping that like in check in the process, right? Like they'll have that staple size that leaves like a little, 1/3 of a lump thicker than it's at, or half a lump. But every once in a while, every 4 to 6 weeks, I'm throwing a meal to them, and I'll look at them the next morning after they eat it at night, and they got a football in them. And I'm like, all right, you're going to be happy for 3 weeks.
There's a part of this that can be called complacency on part of the keeper too, at least for me, because, I have a number of retics, and they all pretty much behave the same way. I mean, like I said, locality versus mainland, they've got their differences, but in the grand scheme of things, they pretty much have the same behaviors. They're not defensive. They're not in any way threatening. But then you have that one animal that the behavior changes is on. And it made me think outside the box, because everything's been going so smooth for so long that I don't know what to think when a problem occurs. And I'm almost grateful that did take place, because of the fact that it got me to think outside the box. It got me to reach out. It got me to take a look at all of my other retics too, to make sure that I wasn't blind to something that might be going on with any of my other animals. So if on one hand, I'm glad it was a blessing that it took place, and then again, on the other hand, I'm also glad because it got me to reach out. It got me to learn a little more. And realize and see that, we are truly trying to help each other here in the Retic community. And I'm my worst enemy when it comes to reaching out, because I'm imposing, you don't want to help me. You don't know me, and it's just my own shit that I got to walk through in my head to make that phone call and get the help that I need,
Right.
I'm very much the same way. And I think that's why going back to what you were talking about before, I think that's why I'm biased about retics being some of the greatest snakes you can own. Is,
yeah, they're great.
If something's up, they give you that feedback to let you know that
they tell you,
yeah, nothing's gonna get past that retic. It's gonna let you know if your husbandry's off or your temperature's off, your feeding's off. You're gonna know.
And I think another important thing about all of this is when you buy from someone like Chris McVicker, or from Nathan, or from myself, you buy from someone that hopefully we make you feel confident enough that you can come to us for anything. The moment and even outside of purchasing, but definitely when you've invested money into us, we're going to give you the time of day and help you with any troubleshooting, even if it's not our animal. But I'm also, oh man, I had something else that Nathan was saying that I wanted to build on, but drawing a blank. Anyways.
Ooh, yeah, and I'm starting to want to get into some of like the outreach that he's done. So I don't want to like totally, wipe this thought from you.
No, that's okay. Let me spew on it for a second. And Gary, if you got anything else on this topic, but I'm trying to think, man, what was it? I know the more pressure I have, I'll probably rudely interject someone down the road if it pops up. But for
me, if there's anything else that I can interject, is if anybody watches this and you have a problem with your animals, don't be afraid to reach out. Find somebody, and if they can't figure the problem out or help you with it, hopefully they can direct you to somebody. And don't have just one person in your back pocket. Grab a network of people. If you're a retic owner, there's plenty of people around here that we can call. And if that person doesn't know or hasn't had the experience of something that you're going through, there's got to be somebody. And that's been my experience. I've called people and have people say, hey, you know what? I haven't gone through that. And then I go to somebody else and I get the answer that I'm looking for.
Beautiful. That you reminded me. I wanted to say, as you were talking about the issues that you went through, that you reached out to me with that feeding experience, it was something that I, like 2 years ago, went through the first time and had to reach out to someone. And I could say, fortunately for me, because of some decisions I've made, I have a lot of retics and I've bred now. I think this last clutch that just hatched might have been my 9th or 10th clutch. So for me, I think if it was my 10th, I'd have to go back, but a big milestone for me at least. So it's allowed me a lot of opportunity to learn. And every single time that I need to learn something new, it's not me. Well, not every time, but I would say vast majority of the time, I have to go out and seek support. And you just speaking to don't be afraid to reach out and ask reminded me what I was about to say. But yeah, the advice that I gave you was information that I got and it worked for me, and I passed it down to you. And that's just how we build a network and how we build a community. We're far enough now, still early, but far enough now to where it's okay for us that are newer to say, yeah, this wasn't an original thought. I'm never taking credit for this. It's something I learned from someone and I'm just passing the information on, and I'm more than happy to do that. Again, same situation you went through, I went through probably 2 years ago, learned the information, and it just so happened you messaged me and I was like, boom, this is exactly what's going on. And I experienced the same exact thing. And just the more retics you have, just the more exposures to troubleshooting you have. And so you end up troubleshooting maybe more than someone else with less retics does, because you have more opportunity to do that. Nice one, Nate.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that was good. It was
I was
nice.
like, oh no, my mic wasn't muted. No, I really want to get into just talking about community. Let me pull it up really quick, but I want anyone who does have those questions to be able to go and reach out to you through your Instagram. But I also want to pull up your YouTube. You've done a ton of outreach and just educational stuff on there. And I think some of the contributions you've had within just letting people understand what a retic's behavior's like through these videos has been awesome. So like, how do you see your role within the reptile community, and like what kind of knowledge or like what lessons are you trying to help contribute through like the work that you're putting out?
The main thing for me, I think is that I want to crush the myths about retics. I want to take away the negativity, right? And I know I'm not going to be able to do that. But if I could be one person, right? One person in the community that when they go to my Instagram or they go to my YouTube or even my personal Facebook page and they go, wow, that guy's got some big snakes and they're puppy dog tame, you know, I feel like I'm doing something. I feel like I'm pushing something forward that might take away from somebody who goes, oh, that's a 30-foot snake. It's going to eat you in your sleep. Or, you know, I mean, all the stuff we hear about large constrictors in general. I've been fascinated with large constrictors for a very, very long time. And it really is in the last 5 years where I've really started to get into keeping them and keeping them responsibly. And you know, we can all go to YouTube and find bite videos. We can find, you know, all these just negative videos that are either concerning a reticulated python or a Burmese python, or maybe an oversized
videos.
You know, I don't want that. You know, I really appreciate that when you pull up my stuff, you refer to education, because that's what I want. You know, I've been very fortunate in on two different ends of the spectrum, right? Where like I get to go to my community as a resource. And I never really even thought like reptiles. People want to learn about reptiles. They absolutely love reptiles. We have a store out here that used to do this outreach, and I guess for lack, I'm going to say it, I'm going to be transparent. I heard they started charging people, and they got expensive. So they reached out to me and said, hey, how much would you charge to do this? And I'm like, I'm not going to charge you anything. You're going to let me bring my reptiles in and show people and let them touch them? I'm going to do that for free. Bring me on. So for the last 2 years, my wife and I have been able to bring retics, tortoises, bearded dragons, and all sorts of different reptiles to the Amador County Fair and the Calaveras County Fair, and have all this outreach with children and parents. And what that has spawned into is the parents calling me from like an event, and they say, hey, you know what, my daughter's in the Girl Scouts, and can you do a reptile show for us at our Girl Scout cookie kickoff? And I'm like, absolutely. And then I get a church that calls me and says, hey, you know, my kid was at the Girl Scout cookie thing, and we have a church summer camp, and can you bring the reptiles on? Absolutely. You know, and you know what? Johnny's going to be there. Johnny's going to want to touch the retics heads, or, you know, pull on the tail or do whatever. But if there's only one Johnny and 13 other kids who are listening and they're petting the snake and they're getting that hands-on experience about how beautiful and how wonderful these reptiles are, it's a win-win situation for me.
I thought
Absolutely
it was Billy. I thought it was Billy, the head stepper.
Johnny will do that
puller.
too.
Billy, they're a sweet kid, man. So let's go to the other end of the spectrum, where I've been really fortunate. And I have been a USARK member for 4 years now. And thanks to social media and USARK, when I got involved with USARK, Vanessa was not the administrator for USARK. I don't remember who it was, but they would never, ever, ever return my text messages. Well, I could only text message through Messenger on Facebook. And I got really excited about USARK. And I don't remember what that defining moment was, right? But it was something, and I said, you know what? These guys are helping us protect our reptiles. I got to become a member. It was $40 a month. And I even, at one point, I went up to the $200 a year, not $40 a month, $40 a year. And I went up to the next level, which I think was $200 a year. And you know what? I was buying memberships for people. And I wanted to talk to somebody at USARK about how do we put like a donate button on your website so we can donate money to USARK. And then instead of like the donations going to something other than a membership, it's the memberships that the bases grow, our numbers grow, and we become a stronger community. So why not give a donate button so that if somebody needs a free membership, they just go to the website, they enter their information, they get a free membership, and then hopefully they can save $40 in the next year to renew that membership. But nobody would ever return my messages, man. I could see that they read the message, but nobody ever talked to me. Nobody ever responded to me. And then Vanessa came on board. And I think I emailed Vanessa once, and she was on me. And every time I've ever messaged Vanessa. She has responded. She has been there. She has helped me out. Vanessa has made it extremely easy for me to help with USARK and to be passionate about USARK, and Phil as well. I don't have as much contact with Phil as I do with Vanessa, but I do have contact with Phil, and it's, to me, it's like, these guys are helping me keep my reptiles in my home. They're helping you keep your reptiles in your home. And
100%.
I think it's only fair that I do what I can. I mean, it's not a lot of work on my end. My wife and I went to Washington to go to a reptile show. Little did she know that she was going to be sitting in a booth for the 2 days that we were up there, but that's what we did. But we got to network with other people, and I got to get USARK people. I got to get people signed up for USARK, sell T-shirts, talk about USARK all weekend. And people that had no idea of what USARK was, well, they got a pamphlet, and maybe they went home and they read it, but they got a little piece of what USARK can do if they were a member. And it never gets old to me. I'm passionate about it, and I believe in it. That's the thing, is I believe in USARK. I don't give a shit what anybody says about USARK. If people don't believe in it, if people want to say this or that or the other about it, that's their opinion. It's not my opinion, and I'm never going to go after somebody for how they think or believe about USARK. I'm the one that believes in USARK. So I'm going to be the person that speaks how I feel, and I'm going to be passionate about it because of what they do for us.
With Vanessa, I do want to say, she just made an announcement that she became something along the lines for NARBC, right?
Right.
And so she, at that announcement at the bottom, she said, please, drop your comments on feedback or of this or of that, and regarding how we can make NARBC better. And I kind of jokingly was like, bring it back to Arlington. Yeah, bring it back to Arlington. And you want to know what she did? And I've talked to Vanessa multiple times. I've met her in person, and Vanessa's a great person. She's got a lot of energy. I love her. But she literally reached out to me. And of course, I knew this information already. She's like, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to go back to Arlington because of the venue and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, but what can we do to make Dallas better? And I was like, Vanessa, I said, LOL, thank you so much for just giving me that information. I was just kind of pushing your buttons and teasing you. Congrats on the new position. I said, but if there's anything that I'm going to give you in regards to it being in Dallas, is that it's kind of a barrier for large constrictor keepers, or for Python and boa keepers in general, because Dallas has, Texas, the land of guns, the land of the free, right? But Dallas for some reason has the highest restrictions on constrictors than any other city in Texas. That you can have a red tail boa in Dallas, but you can't have a rosy boa. You can't have a sand boa. So tell me how that makes sense, right? Let alone you can't have a retic, you can't have any species of python. So I gave her that feedback, and she said we're working with they're talking to the Texas wildlife and trying. So ideally, I think what's going to happen in my mind, and maybe I shouldn't say this,
well, we already
publicly,
know
but
some of this from the last show, though. So I
because
don't
Bob
think that
was
it's
there.
there's not necessarily bans on these species in Dallas. It was the sale and exhibition of these animals.
Sales. So yeah, because Bob Clark proved everyone. He came out with his wiener hanging out and was like, here are my brand new Aztecs that just hatched out of the eggs and they haven't even shed yet. Here they are. Which, by the way, they were beautiful. But I will say that I think that the message is going to be bring the snakes, don't do the sales in Dallas. Bring them there, put a reserve on them, do the exchange legally, however else you want to. And I'm hoping that people start to bring the species, because what you don't want is a ball python fest. And again, not saying anything negative about ball pythons, but when you have a massive expo and a reptile show, you don't just want to see ball python. Like, thank goodness I got the opportunity to see every species of tree monitor there. And with Corey Martin, and that was the highlight of the entire show, was being able to just hang out and finally get to see the tree monitors there. But I'm hoping that I know Vanessa's going to work hard, and I know that NARBC's always been a great show, and they're going to find ways to make sure that they can continue to make it a great show in Dallas. But I guess, Vanessa, if you hear this, maybe think about an NARBC in San Antonio. I don't know.
So I want to speak to this only because NARBC, I've been to it twice in Arlington, and the reason that I go there is for two reasons. Number one is because that's where I get to see you guys, Chris McVicker, D&T Retics, the people that I have connected with. I get to see them when I go to Arlington, Texas at NARBC. It's been a wonderful show. I taking my granddaughter to it. It has been like one of those things that I get excited for every year, and now it's gone. To me, it's gone. I won't go because of the fact that
D&T's not going to be there vending. Chris isn't going to be there vending. Right. I know that Chris and Gavin typically vend together, so they're not there. And
it's always been about the people for me on those.
I plan on going to the Herp show in Oklahoma City this next year. I don't know if it's going to be anything the size of NARBC or if I even see you guys there, but at least I get to see Chris. I love Chris and Sarah. They were like two of my favorite people. So one way or the other, I'll get back into a show over in Texas, hopefully, where all of like Jen from Mod Exotics and you guys and the Retic community in that area, where I can go and see everybody. But I'm not going to go to Dallas.
I gotta convince Chris to go to the Herps Conroe show. That's like a little bit north of or south of Austin or north of Austin. But I know D&T Retics go to that. If Chris can go there, it's in Austin. I can go there, that would be a good show if the thing in Dallas still is murky and on the waters. Unfortunately, just travel and what we do with my family here, I probably won't go to the Oklahoma show, but I know that Chris makes his way to Texas frequently, so maybe I can try to convince him to go to the Conroe show. It's not nearly as big as NARBC, but the shows are great, and they got great examples of animals there. But I'm excited to see and get some feedback back from Vanessa and happy that she's doing that.
Before we get too far away from just the outreach and the education you've been doing, it seems like you're already at a pinnacle of like what the amount of work you can be doing for new people in the industry. Do you have any goals of like where you want this to go in the next handful of years, or any improvements you want to do to your education and outreach?
I mean, I don't know if I've ever put that much thought into it. The only thing that I want to do is just make sure that again, that if anybody has a question, they can feel comfortable coming to me, and if I don't have the answer to that question, then I can refer them to the person that might have that answer. The first thing I don't want to do is make a retic look like the wonderful first pet for anybody. I will be the first person to say that retics are not for most people. They are not. They get big.
Even the smallest ones.
Right. They require a lot of attention. I don't care. My experience with them is that if you want a good, healthy relationship with your reticulated python, you've got to interact with it on a regular basis. You can't just let it be a showpiece in your living room. So a lot of people get into the reptiles, or maybe move up from the colubrids to the ball pythons to the larger constrictors, because it's a shock value thing. It's like, look at this big snake I have. I mean, that is not in any way, shape, or form why I have large constrictors. I'm dumb, man. There's something wrong with me in my head that says this is a good idea, but I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it. You know,
Oh, that's my favorite.
I am not your normal person. But that's why I say, if anybody, I love introducing people to large snakes and seeing their reaction on how docile and how, interactive a reticulated python can be. I love that first interaction with people. But the one thing I don't ever want to do is put out this thing that, or this vibe that reticulated pythons are a great pet. Go get one right now. All I really want to be is a resource, and hopefully, like I said, be the counterproductive or the counteractive, the person that shows them in the positive light rather than in the negative light. You'll never see a bite video. You're never going to see stupid, constrictor. You're not going to see live animal feedings, nothing like that. I've got a very boring channel, and I like it like that. But I don't know. I've got I don't know. I think I saw almost 5,000 followers now on my Instagram. And all I do is post. That's all I do, and hashtag. And maybe some of those are bots. I don't know, but people follow me, and that's I don't ask for it. All I ask is that all I promise to myself is that to put out something positive and nothing negative.
Well, I think
I was muted. I was muted. I caught myself. Damn it. Gary caught me. Damn it.
I think that's something you're achieving spot on. So
yeah,
we appreciate that.
But Gary, I will say, I think that you're being a little humble as far as your channel goes and being boring, because I've been on, I've been on several different podcasts as guests before. I've been on Trap Talk a few times. I've been on, oh man, what's the podcast held by Dylan? Man.
Oh, even
drawing a blank. Pets at Home? No.
Animals at Home?
Animals at Home podcast. And did a phenomenal interview with him. But I will say that, like, Nathan and I have both been on your YouTube channel, and I really, when I go into an interview, right, and they want to talk about retics or locality retics or super dwarf retics, I actually take the time to just kind of like mentally prepare. Like it matters to me what I say on these podcasts, because I'm just like you. I don't want to go out there and have a salesy pitch and propaganda that these animals are for everybody and they're going to stay the size of colubrids and yada, yada, yada. But probably, like, as far as being a guest, the episode that I felt most proud of was on your channel when you had a retic roundtable with me, Joe, Eric Lee, and I think Chris McVicker. And we talked super dwarfs, and it was just an episode that even 3 weeks ago, I went back and listened to just to hear Eric and hear Chris and hear Joe. And it was such an awesome episode. So you have phenomenal content, and you have good interviews, you have good guests, and definitely not boring, right? Because I think part of the animals that we love, I really think that what makes a channel good is the person's passion in front of the camera. And you mentioned that your number one thing that you are trying to do in your channel is education, right? But I think even before that, like on top of that, is demonstrating passion. There's a reason why the locality retic game is starting to catch wave and doing really well, and it's because a lot of breeders out there are showing their passion for locality retics. If the passion for locality retics existed in 2010 the way that it does now, we would have probably 10 other localities in this country that we don't have. And so I think passion is what drives viewership and what drives popularity. And again, popularity, I'm not saying it to like in a way to be cool, but when you have good content, you want to be like good educational content, you want to be popular. You want that to go out to the masses. And if there's one word that I can summarize Gary Tarplee and Constricted and Addicted, it's passion. So I thank you for what you do, how you do it, the message you're sending, the countless hours of volunteer work. I don't know how you find the time with a band, with your hobbies, with your snakes, and then you're still like, yeah, I don't want your money. Let me go pitch these snakes to Girl Scouts. It blows my mind. It's inspiring nonetheless, and I appreciate you for all of that.
Thank you. The reward is in the reciprocation I get. I mean, there's no amount of money that could pay back the reciprocation I get from people, the public, for doing what I get to do. So I'm paid. I'm paid twofold. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Education's fun that way.
Yeah.
When you see it pay off and someone else take on even a little bit of your advice and whatever you're trying to teach them, that's when it doesn't matter how much you get paid or if you get paid at all.
Right.
So, real quick story.
Go
ahead.
for it. No.
And then after the story, I got one wrap-up question.
Oh, I have something before that wrap-up question. So, Lucas.
Okay, cool.
So we did the outreach with the Girl Scouts, and obviously the mother, her daughter was completely enamored with my retics, and I have my platinum tiger. She's about 1.5 years old. She's about 5.5, 6 feet long. And this girl has got her and she's walking around with her. I mean, I didn't see my retic, that particular one that I brought, for the whole night because she had her and she was showing her off to all her friends. And so at the end of the night, her mother came up to me and she was the one that organized the event. And she told me she was deathly afraid of snakes. And I'm going to ask the question. If you tell me you're deathly afraid of snakes, I want to know why. Well, where does this come from? Not because I want to change it, not because I want you to like snakes, but so I can better understand where you've developed this fear from. And so she told me, she goes, when I was in kindergarten, and this woman is in her 30s, maybe late 30s, I don't remember. She told me when she was in kindergarten, the teacher had a pet ball python in the class. And she made the whole classroom sit in a circle, and they couldn't leave that circle. And that ball python was supposed to crawl over everybody. And she got scared. She developed a fear around it, and she didn't like snakes from that point on. And when she was telling me that, while she's telling me that, I've got my Burmese python around my neck and draping down the side of my arm. And as she's telling me this story, she's reaching over and she's touching my Burmese python. And I didn't know if I should breathe, fart. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, right? Because I didn't want to take away from what I'm watching. She's telling me how deathly afraid of snakes she is, and she's reaching over and she's touching my Burmese python. And I didn't know what to say. And I listened to her story, and then I took the Burmese python off my neck, and I said, "Would you like to hold her?" And she put her hands out and she held her. And this was a woman that was like death. She was telling me how deathly afraid of snakes she was. And by us coming in and displaying our reptiles in the way that we do, in a very positive way, she walked through that fear and held a Burmese python that night. And I was just like, those are the things to me, man, that like,
yep.
You can't pay me. You can't pay me enough money to walk through that experience.
Yeah.
To watch somebody do that. Now, it's not like she's going to go buy a snake, but what she got to do is walk through one of her fears and get a different outlook on reptiles that evening.
Right.
And the other thing is that every time a child interacts with a reptile, it changes their outlook on reptiles for the rest of their life. It's an experience
on animals, period. Yeah. On animals, period. I've seen people that change their views on reptiles, and all of a sudden they're not stepping on bugs outside anymore.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly. It's a beautiful feeling. I had my niece and nephew over probably last year, and they came into the garage, and I never force or impose holding, and I just handle in front of them. And then you love to hear that, like, can I try? When they're kind of like this the whole time, and then you see them do this, and then once the snake is in their hand, that's it. It's game over. They love it. And I couldn't agree more. It's such a good feeling.
That's like truly the best benefit that I get in doing any sort of outreach is the reciprocation of watching somebody walk through a fear, or just maybe finding a different perspective.
Right.
Before Lucas gives his wrap up question, I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to talk about some of your hobbies outside of the reptile industry, because you post about that as well.
Yeah, I'm in a church choir, and I play the harmonica.
This guy.
We were in Kansas, I think it was. We were on tour, and we were in Denny's in this little town. I don't even remember the name of it. And we got 6 people with long hair. We're having breakfast, and I went up to the register to go pay. And these 3 little ladies are up there, and they looked at me, and they're like, "You're in a rock band, aren't you?" And I said, without missing a beat, I said, "No, I'm in a church band, and I play harmonica." And they just laughed. I've now, ever since I got that reaction from them, that's been kind of like my go-to. It's like, "You're in a band, huh?" It's like, "No, I'm in a church dance choir."
That's good, man.
So yes, I have some extracurricular activities. I'm in 2 bands, actually. I'm in a band that I've been in for 10 years. It's called Niviane. A lot of people say Niviane or Niviane, or it's pronounced Niviane. Or if you go back to Greek mythology, it can be pronounced Niviane. So we're a power metal band. And I like to say that if Iron Maiden and Judas Priest had a baby, it would be Niviane, with an edge, right? I call us the American breed of power metal, and it's like, I think it's on an aggressive end of power metal, but we're not like cookie monster bands, like every lyric of every song that we do. Although we do have some songs that have that content.
I love the Cookie Monster music.
Yeah, wait till you hear the next album. It's definitely got more growl to it.
Me want
but anyway,
more cookies.
Yeah, give me cookies. I've been able to do a lot, man. I've been fortunate enough to tour the United States 3 times, Canada once. I was supposed to go to Europe, go to Greece, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands. We were all signed a contract, ready to go, and then COVID happened. So I have not yet been over the pond. Shitty. I've been able to open up for bands such as Amon Amarth, Testament, toured with Serenia, Vicious Rumors, Soulfly. I've been able to do a lot with music, and I'm super, super grateful for what I've been able to do. We've got 2 albums out. First album called The Druid King, second album called The Ruthless Divine. We've got a new album getting ready to be released called The Queen of Phantoms, but I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, so I might have you edit that out. I don't know. Maybe not.
Let me know by tomorrow night.
We said it at our last show, so I don't think it's going to matter. But anyways, yeah, we got a new album coming out. I've ever since I saw John Bon Jovi, during that video, I've seen A Million Faces, and I've rocked them all, right? And the whole audience lights up. Not that I like that song at all, but that particular environment, right? I've always dreamed of being that since I was a kid. And it didn't happen for me until I was in my late 30s. I didn't get into my first band until I was actually in an Iron Maiden tribute band for like 5 years. And then I got into an original band where I couldn't write music. They wouldn't let me do nothing. I was told what to do. And then Niviane came along, and they scooped me up, and that's where I've been for 10 years. So in the community that I live in here, I live in a very small community. The 2 communities, counties combined, are like 30,000 people. So you can't bring a metal band up here. It's just not the environment for it. It's more of a retirement community.
More of a church choir community.
Yeah, right. Yes, a harmonica church player, right? So
he keeps that harmonica handy.
Anyway, so I wanted to bring a band up here that I could give back to my community that I live in. And I decided to start a classic rock cover band, of all things, playing everything from Elton John to Night Ranger. And all I was really trying to do was just fill this niche of wanting to play music in my own backyard. And we had like over 200 people show up at our last show, and people are raving about my band Flashback up here. So I've got
what a
two
great
bands.
name too.
Yeah, and I found out that there's thousands of classic rock cover bands called Flashback. So it's trying to find your Facebook page, and then you've got Flashback, in India and Flashback in Florida, and all over the place. But anyway, so I'm very fortunate. I get to play music. I've been playing guitar for the better part of 45 years or so. It's the longest thing I've ever done in my life, and I couldn't imagine myself doing anything different. But I don't know if this is really relevant content or not. I'm also a recovering addict. A lot of people don't know that about me.
Well, with your name, I think that's important to hit on.
That should have been at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to cut this and put it right at the beginning. I mean, I think I
do that much work, Lucas.
No, I won't. But wait, hold on, okay? But I think that's number one, thank you for sharing that. That's not always something that's easy for people to lift off, but I also know that working through phases of recovery, it's important to be able to openly talk about that. So appreciate that. How do you mind me asking how long are you been in recovery for?
In August 16th, I'll have 26 years.
Awesome, man. That's huge.
Yeah. I got clean August 16th, 1998. And that's clean from everything. I don't drink. I'm the coolest square you'll ever meet. I don't do shit, man. I don't vape. I don't do shit, man. I drink. I do caffeine, and that's about it.
That's fair.
But yeah, but this life that I do with my recovery, and I'm fully involved in recovery. If anybody knows what the recovery process is, I'm fully involved in it. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have the life that I have. I wouldn't care about my reptiles the way I care about them. I wouldn't play music I wouldn't care about my music the way I care about my music. I wouldn't care about my family. It's given me a life beyond living that I never thought was possible. But it's something that I do on a daily basis. It's not something that, last year's recovery is going to keep me clean today. It's something that I do continuously and I'm very active in. So I know that I've talked to a couple of other keepers that are in recovery, and I know that somebody I just talked to celebrated 5 years. That's huge, man. And I think that, maybe if I put it out there that, that I'm in recovery, maybe other people, might, not that people have to talk about it, but be more comfortable, being okay with themselves in recovery,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an element, man. We don't talk about it. So, but for me, it's like something I've been doing for 26 years. So it's the reason I am who I am. If I wasn't in recovery, if I didn't live my lifestyle through the doors of the 12-step programs that I go to, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And again, I want to thank you for sharing that. I think that, I'm biased here. I'm a therapist. So obviously I think that destigmatizing and speaking out against the stigma with mental health in general and addiction is important, but I think also for anyone listening that is going through your recovery stage or struggling with mental health issues, the moment that you can publicly claim and share the struggles that you go through, again, whether it's addiction, depression, anxiety, whatever it is, it breaks that shame cycle of secrecy. And it's so important to have that weight lifted off your shoulders and not feel like you have to hold this in for the rest of your life, because shame eats at you and secrecy eats at you, and just being able to just outwardly be able to say like, yes, I struggle with this and I'm going through it. But again, thanks for sharing that. And so outreach, education, animals, rock band, and you're involved in your 12-step recovery, I'm gonna you got to change your Retic handle or your Instagram handle to Superman.
I think constricted and addicted fits perfect.
Dude, I mean, you man, I'm gonna hit you up for some time management help, man. You are
Balance,
killing
man,
it.
it's balance. I want to just really quick say, if there's anybody out there that struggles with addiction, you can private message me, man. No judgment. If you need help, I'll walk through hell with you, man. So
yeah,
that's
what people need is someone there to make it seem doable.
Right. And I think walk through hell is a perfect way of describing that, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there doing that, and I own all the shirts.
Well, that's huge, man. Congrats on you said 26 years coming up of sobriety. Out of all your feats and achievement, I think that we ended this episode on a great achievement right there. But I do have one wrap up question in regards to snakes. And what's the secret mindset to deciding to keep animals and not breed them?
I think you just have to have a passion for what you have. I mean, I'm sure that a breeder can say the same thing, but for me, it's like, I love what I have. And I honestly, I just don't have the patience, tolerance, or time to do it. And even if I did, I still don't think I'd want to do it. I want to enjoy what I have. And I think that it cutting out the equation of breeding allows me to fully enjoy every animal that I have in my possession and not, get lost in the mix of taking care of babies or, anything else that goes along with that. Because I there's things that I have no idea that go along with breeding. But when I keep, it's like I said, I shared with you guys that I get really kind of googie and baby talk my animals. And I do that because I truly love my animals. I mean, I don't know if I guess if you know, if you understand how I feel, how I feel. And I give that attention to my animals. I mean, there is a joy that takes place when I walk into either one of my reptile rooms and I see my animals and, beyond they have clean water, there's no poop in their enclosure. They're looking at me and they're not looking at me defensively. They're looking at me like, hey, I'd like to come out. Can I hang out with you for a little while? I mean, there's something about that to me that is just joyous. It's just like, it's something internal that you can't manufacture. It's just there. And by me focusing my attention on being a keeper and loving my animals the way I do, I get to reap the full benefits of every animal that I have in my possession and give them the love that I'm capable of giving them. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it absolutely does. I think that there's a lot to be said about, and I think even Nathan with a smaller collection, but being busy and working, with his hair gig and all that stuff. I think that when it's baby season and you have babies, it does take away time from the main group of animals that you have.
If I'm breeding something, it's something that I really, really want for myself. It's not, because it's gonna, I'm always trying to push forward, what's being put into the market, but it's really for me. And before the babies come, it's the animals I already have. And I think more people need to have that mindset of this is an incredible animal that I have in my house. And if it's just a pet, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that not everybody out there that gets an animal needs to be a breeder. And I think that that's really important to a message to get across. Now, I will say, like, for me specifically, part of what I love about keeping these animals is understanding them. And I think for me, part of understanding them means getting them to reproduce. It's a different set of understanding. and not that it's any more or less than you, Gary, with being able to like really know and be in tune with your animals. But, you know, for some people, it does, it's part of that excitement that drives that passion and that fuel. But absolutely, with breeding, there are cons, right? When you have more animals and you have to feed more animals and you have more money to spend on animals and you need to have more overhead, and it can get stressful. There's a lot, and it takes away. Absolutely. Like I can think back on the day that I had 6 retics, and what a beautiful, simple time, right? Like how like easy was it to just go in and swoop through a quick clean and hold all my animals in one day and give them all that love and attention. And that doesn't, you know, it's sad to say, but I also, there's something else that also drives me to like that I like breeding. But it's not, you know, it definitely, the simple times are gone, right? Like, you know, it's going to take a long time until I ever feel like I'm back to the simple times. And I don't know if I want to get to that like really simple time again, but I agree with Nathan. I think that more people need to have the mindset that when you buy an animal, just because you love it, the next thought in your mind doesn't always have to be, let me get the opposite sex of that same animal so I can breed them. Because we see that a lot. People get their first retic, it's a female, and they're like, oh, I love this thing, or it's a male, so let me buy a female or a male to go with it. And it's like, meh, do you need to?
Right. And I also want to say that I'm very appreciative of breeders. You know, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't have any of the animals I have if it wasn't for breeders. You know, there's people out there and people that doing the selective breeding. I thank you for making animals available so that someone like me can, you know, take an animal in and make it a pet and love it the way that I do, you know. So if it wasn't for breeders, we wouldn't have the animals we have. But I have absolutely no interest whatsoever. I've never ever crossed my mind to go, you know what? I think 1 + 1 makes 20. Let's do this thing. It just doesn't equate in my head for some reason. So I guess that's part of the insanity that
That's such a good way of putting it. I love that so much. And you know what I will say is I appreciate buyers like you. The buyers that get them as pets, because let me tell you what, when it comes to seeing my animal in other people's houses, the animals I see the most are the people that have them as pets. They're constantly posting them and they're sharing them and they're tagging me. I have sent some animals to some phenomenal breeders that I am very proud of, like Nick Mutton, you know, a handful of people that I'm proud to sell these animals to, but I haven't seen a picture of them. They're breeders, right? They're busy. They got a lot to do, right? I'm still honored that they bought some of my animals, but I don't get to see and follow them the way that I do with people like you. Like Gary, every single time that you post that Coyote, you know, that heart just kind of fills up. It feels good. So I love selling to just pet keepers.
Social media is such a beautiful thing, right? Like you get to watch the growth of your animal, the health of your animal, everything about your animal through social media. And because I've made it so that every time I post the Coyote, it's tagged Lab Exotics with the hatch date on it. So that I think that's important. I think it's important. And I do that with all of my animals. Every animal that I have here, except for this one up here, because and Georgia, because I won't hashtag that company, and I won't hashtag the guy I got Emma from either. They're just not reputable breeders. They shouldn't be breeding in the first place. But anyways, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should have. Who cares? But I think it's important that if I buy a baby animal, a baby retic from somebody, watch it grow up through pictures. I love posting pictures of my animals. I fucking love it. I get up in the morning. It's the first thing I want to do. And it's the last thing I want to do before I go to bed. You know?
I'm right there with you. Yeah. Gary, you have graciously taken the time out of your day to come on this episode. If you don't mind, as we wrap up, can you just share where people can find you, Drop all of your plugs, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Can you share that information so that people can, and again, I just want to stress this for everyone listening. There's probably not a more wholesome retic keeper that you can follow than Gary. I will say, Abby gives you a run for your money. Abby's page is phenomenal. But
I wish I was Abby, man. I do. I see her stuff, especially what she's done with this last breeding that she did.
Oh, it was incredible. She's documented it all well.
I mean, honestly, that brought tears to my eyes because I would have never thought to do something like that. But she's just she's so connected to her animals, and to allow that process and have that process take place where she actually let, I don't remember her, I could see it out anyways. She let the mother touch those eggs on her own, man. The bond and the relationship that she has with those retics is just, it's I think it's better than anything I could ever do.
Was it Stella?
Really do. Stella, yes.
Stella's the mom. Yeah. Yeah, yes. I feel like I'm Stella's best friend just through social media because of how much I got to see that snake.
I messaged Jody and I told Jody, I said, man, if there was a way I could take one of those snakes off your hands, I would do it in a heartbeat. I can't take any more. I have no more room for retics.
Not with a sulfur on the way.
Not with a sulfur on the way. But you know what? I seeing something like that grabs my attention. I mean, that right there is retics that have been raised and bred with love, absolute, total love. And Abby depicts that in everything that she does on her social media. I mean, if I look at her and I'm like, I wish I could be like her. You know what I mean? But I'll never go naturalistic because of the fact that my retics will just tear it apart. If they don't tear it apart while I pull them out, they'll lay all over it. It'll be in 20 different areas of their enclosure that by the time I get them out the next day. So cork bark and humidity, water bowls, and hides. And they're good. They're golden.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more.
Where can you find them? So Instagram is my, that's where I do a lot of my posting for my reptiles. I got a lot of social media, so bear with me here. So my Instagram is Constricted and Addicted. And I'm always on that. My Facebook is Gary Tarplee. You're going to find my band stuff primarily on my Facebook page, but I sneak reptiles in there too. I hate Facebook with a passion. The only reason I'm on Facebook is because it's like 90% of our traffic for my band goes through Facebook. So I had to be like, take one for the team. Okay, I'll have a Facebook account, but you get to see my snakes while you're at it. So Gary Tarpley on Facebook. If you go back over to Instagram, I have Niviane Guitars 1. That is my personal Niviane guitarists page, which I don't do anything with regularly because I don't know. It's a lot of social media, and I got a lot of places to post, so that one doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But I keep telling myself I'm going to post there. If you go back over to Facebook, you go to Niviane Metal. That is my our Facebook page for my metal band that I'm in. Check us out. We're pretty badass, if you ask me. Then if you go over to my other Facebook page, it's Flashback Calaveras, and that's my cover band. And if you go to YouTube, so YouTube, I have a Constricted and Addicted YouTube channel, which
needs more love, by the way.
It does. It really freaking does.
If anyone gets anything from the end of this episode, let's go over there and please subscribe because like more eyes need to be on this content.
I need to do more with it. Unfortunately, what's happened with my YouTube channel is I just don't get the same response as I get from Instagram. That's the problem. And
it's frustrating.
I lose interest. It's frustrating. I lose interest in it. I really try. I've bought high-end cameras and I've done all this stuff, and I get like 5 likes and 1 comment, and you know I shouldn't treat it like that because those 5 likes and that one comment I'm so grateful for, but I don't know what it is. You know, I got to stop making excuses and just say, you know what, it doesn't matter because the content is what's important, not the amount of views or, you know, subscribers I have. It's really about if somebody's looking for positive input on reticulated pythons, USARK information, that I'm putting it out on my YouTube channel and not just my Instagram channel. So I will make a more concerted effort to do something. I already did on my Instagram a few weeks back and said, okay, if I redo this, what do you guys want to see? You want to see, like, I want to bring back the Retic, the
Roundtable
podcast. I can't. No, I didn't do Retic Roundtable because there was somebody else that had called the Retic Roundtable, and oddly enough, they just brought that back not too long ago. I saw the podcast come up, and I only saw one episode, so maybe it was like,
yeah, they did a one and done. I was hoping that they were going to come back a little bit more. I mean, we really need more Retic content out there. Nathan and I should not be the only Retic content out there.
No.
We should not.
You guys are doing like an amazing job, and I'll tell you what. There was one thing that's like, I felt like I don't want to be in competition with the Retic Lounge. God, these guys are awesome, man. It's when I'm in the gym, I'm listening to the Retic Lounge. I mean, I can blast through a couple of episodes, and it's like I learn new things. So the Retic Lounge has always been near and dear to my heart ever since I found you guys. But on the other hand, I did make a commitment, and I think I've got, 800 subscribers on my YouTube channel that I just kind of said, you know what, I'm not going to post any more content on. I think I owe it to myself and the channel that I start making a more concerted effort to put some more content up there. So I will do that. And as a matter of fact, I'll make it a point by the end of this week to have a new video ready. So be ready for it. It's coming.
Awesome.
Okay, love that.
I think I got all my
want to
social
plug?
media.
I'm trying to find that. Dude. Oh man. That's amazing.
I don't have an OnlyFans. No, I have two OnlyFans accounts. One is, I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to find what you named that segment on your.
Oh, I can get back to it really fast.
Yeah, because I saw it on. I saw it when Nathan had it pulled up.
The Retic rant.
Retic rant. There you go.
Retic rants. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Retic rant.
And let me tell you, man, there is not a shortage of Retic people that will come on and rant for you, especially in a. You hosted that so well, and you asked a good list of questions for a good panel.
One of the things that I really wanted to do, and this is one of the things I really like about you guys, is this is not a sit and bullshit session. You know what I mean? You guys have a very structured, may not be the correct word to use, but take it for what it is. It's geared to what it is, the Retic Lounge, And sometimes you watch these podcasts and it's just like five guys getting on there talking about stuff, and it's like, I wanted to hear more about this person and how they're keeping their retics. And you got like maybe 5 minutes of that and 40 minutes of something else that had nothing to do with retics. So, I mean, when I'm watching something about retics, I get excited about the word retic. All right. You say reticulated python, retic, anything of the sort, it's going to catch my attention, especially if it's on social media. So I'm going to tune in and I'm going to expect to hear something that has to do with the care of the king and the husbandry and how you keep your retics. If I tune in and I hear 5 minutes of that and then 40 minutes of bullshit, then I'm going to get discouraged and probably cut off within 5 minutes of bullshit, Anyways, that's I appreciate you guys because you guys don't do that. You are true to the retics. I know with the chondros, Lucas, you've been really passionate about chondros lately, and you talk a lot about that. But it's still this channel is geared to everything retic, whether it's the how they got into the United States, how we're keeping them, everything from A to Z. That's what this channel is, and when I see a retic podcast, I wish more podcasts would be like that.
That's it's a huge compliment to hear that, and I will even add, because you're looking for retic information, let Nathan and I know if you want an episode about something, because after 2 years of doing the podcast, you start to run a little dry. Okay. You start to, that's why we got a species spotlight and we're talking about Drymarchon and colubrids and like, so let us know. And that goes for everybody in the comments, please, if you guys are listening. And again, about retics, if there's a guest that you want on, if there's a topic that you want touched on, please go through our playlists. If you ask us to do an episode on pushing, I'm going to send you a link to our amazing episode on pushing. I don't know. Maybe we could do a pushing 2.0. How to.
It's never. You can't rehash old subjects, man. It's like even if it's a subject that you guys have already done and you're talking about it at another current time. I mean, there's still relevant information that can come out, or maybe even something that's just said that goes, oh man, that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah. That's what our Patreon's for. They help us out. As a matter of fact, Nathan and I are probably, I don't know if we should even talk about or tease this, but Nathan and I are in the process of having to do some deep research. Did you not want me to say it? Or
I mean, yeah, let's not tease it.
Okay.
Because it's going to take us probably a couple more weeks till we record this.
Yeah, it's
something that I want to do right.
Yeah, no, it's something that deserves to be done right. But Gary, once we hop off of here, we'll share it with you. But anyways, on that note, Gary, again, thank you so much for coming on and joining us here at the Retic Lounge. Again, an interview that was very, very much overdue. But to be honest, I'm glad that we waited this long, because Nathan and I have had 2 years under our belt and got to do this interview with you right. Again, just an amazing example of what it's like to keep retics in a good way. And yeah, we appreciate you.
Now, you guys, thank you so much for inviting me on. And I have a whole lot of love for you guys and what you do in this channel. I'm very honored that you guys hit me up and asked me to be here tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
All right, before he gets me to cry at the end of the episode, can we end this, Lucas?
Yeah, I'm removing Gary and we're wrapping up. Gary, have a good one, man.
Thank you, Gary.
Oh. Are we good here? Okay, we're good. Okay. Man. Gary is probably I don't know, someone that's from the time that I met him in Arlington and we did small talk and he got, the Kaiwani from me, and him willing to always share. It's just someone that, you have people in the community that you can go a month or two without talking to, but you still have a profound respect and good relationship with, and that's Gary. For me. So, yeah, that's been one of my probably one of my favorite Retic episodes that we've done in a long time.
Yeah, me too. I just think just such a shining example in this industry of what a good pet reticulated python keeper can do in terms of outreach, in terms of inspiring others. Yeah, just a genuinely great person. So really happy that we finally had him on. Next week, who knows, we might have that teased episode or that unteased episode for you. Maybe. It might be a couple weeks down the road, but I promise there's some content coming up that you guys will not want to miss out on. Early access on this episode, any other episode that we have, Zoom meetings, and the best damn Retic Discord out there. You get access over at patreon.com/the Retic Lounge. So jump over there. If you don't want to do that, just follow us on Instagram, shoot some shit in the comments. We love to see all the interactions. So until next time, guys. Oh,
just one thing that I wanted to mention that I like that NPR does, but NPR on their website has this where you can send a letter. What if we got letters from people? I'm scared that someone would send us
like,
anthrax.
Why don't you guys open a hotline and take messages?
Dude, that'd be awesome.
Like, I don't know how we would even navigate all that.
Yeah, I'm just scared like some people that hate us would probably send us like Nido in the mail.
Those would be fun. Or I was thinking more the voicemail things, but might be fun to listen through. Anyways, We'll see you on the next one, guys.
See you, everyone.